Welcome to the Meta Behind Relationships. I'm your host, Gaylon McDowell, and today I'm going to be talking about the subject titled, Why Are You So Resistant? Why are you so resistant? Some people are very resistant to their own good, to their own breakthroughs, and often they resist what will help them in their relationship or help them actually create a potential relationship. So, to discuss this topic, as I always do with all my shows, I bring on the CEO and founder of the 5S for Love platform, Christine Burkett. How you doing, Christine?
Hey, Gaylon. Listen, I don't know. I feel like it's getting hot in here. That topic's got me nervous. I think it might be impacting me.
Ah,
I mean, I'm just being honest. I think a lot of times people are not honest with themselves. So we're going to see, where this takes us. But this is very interesting. And I think it is huge when you talk about relationships and the impact on relationships. So the first thing I want to ask you, which I love about you, is that you always explain. So, what is resistance?
all right. Resistance is the refusal to accept or comply with something, the
Okay.
attempt to prevent something by action or argument. I'm going to read it again. The
Okay.
refusal to accept or comply with something, the attempt to prevent something by action or argument.
Action or argument.
Yes.
So, when you think about relationships, there are a lot of heated discussions.
Yes, but that's the secondary definite part. The first part is
Okay.
the refusal to accept
Right.
or comply with
So
something.
so that's the thing. So what is the start of the resistance? Is the refusal to comply? Where
The
does
re-
it start?
the beginning of it is always a thought. What do you think about a thing? All
So
resistance is mental because that's where we live. So we have a thought, we have a emotion, we
okay.
have a belief that when something that is different than or something we don't like pushes up against it, it creates resistance. All right. Because the human mind does not like change. And more importantly, the human mind likes to believe that it's right.
That's what I was waiting for you to say. Is when you push up against what? The thing that you don't like. See, that's the thing. Resistance comes from you, and like you said, your thought, but it's the whole thing of, well, this pushes up against my beliefs and my thoughts, and this is what I'm feeling. And so you
Mhm.
immediately push back, and that becomes a resistance. But the thing is, Galen, when you think about that, do you think people, their unwillingness falls into play when you think about it? Here's an example. Listen, I'm not really open to this or that in a relationship, and may it be, I'm not open to every Friday. This is what we're doing. I need to kind of look at us doing something different. And that person in their mind, especially when you marry somebody late in life, they're like, well, I've been doing this for 10 years every Friday.
Mhm. Mhm.
So is it
Well,
the unwillingness that turns into resistance?
unwillingness is one of the aspects of it.
Okay.
Resistance can show up as comfort.
Okay.
Resistance can show up as unconscious bias.
Hmm.
It can show up as unwillingness to change, to
Unwillingness to
adapt.
change. Mm-hmm.
And when you put all of those things together, and resistance also can show up as the fear of being exposed,
I think that's probably the number one.
possibly.
I
I'm
feel
just
like,
giving you the options.
yes, it's a slew of options you threw out there. But I think a lot of people, it's like now they're really going to see.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think, I feel like the biggest fear people have, especially when we look at social media and how prevalent it is in our lives right now, you present one thing and you show up as another thing. But in reality, I think that's the biggest fear for everyone. You really seeing who I am. I'm afraid
right.
of you seeing that. And so the thing is that why are people so fearful of just being uniquely them? Because then you can reduce that whole fear that falls into now I got to be totally, like they say, I got to push back. That's the saying. I got to push back on this and push back on that. To me, that's just resistance. Why are you so afraid of just being yourself? And
Because,
that will cause you not to push back.
because a lot of people feel as though they're not enough when it's all said and
Hmm.
done. If you
Let me
feel as
break
though,
that down. I feel like you need to do one on why am I not enough?
does it sound like I'm reverbing? Oh, no, I'm not. For the moment there, I was reverbing. Okay.
I feel like you need to do a show on I'm not enough.
Well, people believe that they're not enough, and therefore,
Hmm.
if they're exposed, they'll be shown to be not enough. Now, let me be clear.
Okay.
There's a difference between not being not enough as an individual child of God, as an
Right.
individual person. I believe everyone at a baseline spiritual created level equal, without a
Hmm.
shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Now, being exposed is not enough when you're not don't have the skill or the preparation level of someone else. That's a different conversation,
Okay.
because sometimes spirituality gets too fluffy. And what
Right.
I mean by that is that we don't want to deal with stuff in real time. I know that I can't, at my age, walk on the court and play basketball with Steph Curry and LeBron James. Okay, that's foolish. Let me be clear. I couldn't play with them at their age, let
Right.
alone my age now.
Right.
Okay, because if I walked onto a court with Steph Curry and LeBron James, I would
Hmm.
be exposed. It's not good enough in basketball if it was a competitive game. Now, if we're out there just playing around, having fun, goofing off, then it
Yeah.
doesn't make a difference because there are no stakes.
Right.
Okay. But when stakes are involved, people have a fear of not being enough. And I think we have to differentiate not being enough as a being
Right.
versus not having the skill or the preparation level to to produce a particular outcome. Two totally different things.
They are, and I like what you just said because I think that's true. I think a lot of people in the middle of this relationship, you become resistant to change because it's going to reveal or unveil
Hmm.
where you may be weak at. And you want
Yeah.
to appear to be this whole great person, and then in a minute they're getting ready to find out, okay, I'm not.
Yeah. So you'll have somebody that's saying that will, okay, I'll take care of all the bills. And then you look up and the wife is wondering why they're getting evicted out of their home because the man didn't want to expose that he really didn't know what he was doing with money. Okay. So
Right.
it's that type of conversation
Oh,
that we have to be mindful of. So y- resistance in and of itself is still fear
mhm.
based. I talk a lot
Okay.
about fear because
Right.
fear masquerades as a lot of different things.
So you're saying fear and resistance are like what? Friends, cousins?
Yeah, they're what I'm saying is what I'm saying is that resistance at some level
Hmm.
is just an aspect of it, of fear.
Wow.
And
I'm
people won't
not
look at it as fear. I'm not afraid of anything because they think fear just means be afraid
right.
of. But see, but again, the sense of not enough, the sense that I'm inadequate, the sense that I can't produce this particular outcome, the sense that they won't love me for who I am. This is a
Right.
relationship show. They won't accept me for who I am. They
Mm,
won't love me. They won't accept me. They won't be there. They'll leave me if they really found out how I really am. I
right.
wouldn't have no friends. I wouldn't have no business partners. I wouldn't have this relationship or whatever. It's still fear based. So we create resistance. Hear me, as a mechanism to try to protect ourselves, but we harm ourselves in the process because a closed fist can't get fed. Like our closed mouth can't get fed, and a closed fist can't have anything put in it.
Right. You know, Galen, that makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to relationships. I
Hmm.
think that when you look at things that are rooted in fear, you're automatically going to be resistant to change at all
Hmm.
times. And somebody said to me today, when you look at a marriage, you look at a relationship, why argue over the petty stuff?
Yeah,
But in your mind is petty, but to the other
it's
person, you're
not.
getting ready to unveil a unfortunate truth that they
Yeah,
don't want you to see. So
Well,
when you weigh it out like that, you've been a marriage counselor for now over 20 years. When you see that people are not managing just the average norm and they're pushing up against just regular stuff, what do you say to people? And when you're doing marriage counseling, if this person can't get beyond the small stuff, what is happening?
I just asked them very point blankly, do you want to be in this?
Hmm.
Do you want to be, like, okay, so what does marriage mean to you? Do you believe marriage requires a level of compromise? Do you believe that it has some sacrifices, not your non-negotiables, not your bottom lines, but some
Right.
compromises? Because here's the thing, and then I'll ask simple questions like, do you believe that this person is worth those compromises?
Do you think this person is worth your compromises?
So
Wow.
I don't play around. When I start bumping into resistance, like, look, why we playing games here? I don't have time. I'm being honest with you. I might not be the counselor for everybody because I don't have time to play games with people. Like, look, is this person worth the compromise? Is this person worth the effort for you to get better? Is this person worth the effort for the marriage or the relationship to get better?
Right. And that is so true what you just said. Is that person worth it? And if you want to be with them, of course they're worth it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at some point, I always tell people, just at some point, you're going to have to stop playing you and be you.
Yeah.
So they're going to find out eventually. So whether you think they're going to leave you now or later, how about we just deal with it in this moment?
Right.
And
Right.
then kind of don't get 10 years in and they like, what?
Well, see, but yet again, is this person worth it? See, after a while, you just got to get to brass tacks.
Okay.
Are you willing to put the effort in to make this work? Bottom line, or because if you're gonna be, because it doesn't make a difference what a person tries to do, counseling, vacations to the Caribbean,
Right.
go see the pastor, some more fundamentalist churches go bow down at the altar, whatever. It don't make a difference what it is, what the subject matter is. The main thing is if you have the inner resistance, it doesn't make a difference what you do outwardly. Because
So true.
what's actually happening is you're going to be bumping against a very dense
Right.
belief that you're right and they're
And they're
wrong.
wrong. And the other thing is, don't pretend. How can I say this? You know how people put on fronts when you out in public, and then it's like you said, they bow down to the church. I'm gonna make this change. I'm gonna be a good wife. I'm gonna be a good husband. And you go right back home and do the same thing you've been doing, and no change is taking place. I don't like performances. I'm
Well,
totally against that.
what the challenge with performances is eventually you stop believing you. I've been there with okay, I'm gonna do 5 days a week at the gym, and you don't make five. You might sometimes you don't make none. After a while, your mind will start saying, "Yeah, right." So you keeping your word to yourself is a part of you developing integrity.
Say that again, Gaylon.
You keeping your word to yourself is a part of the way you develop integrity.
And folks, on that note, we're taking a commercial break because I need you to marinate now. I need you to really marinate because it's the truth. Folks, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Baby, I've been thinking about the things we said. Oh yeah. And maybe we'd be better off being just friends. Oh yeah. It's getting kinda obvious what you want from me. Only call it
So, welcome back, folks. If you're watching us, you know we're pre recorded, but we would always love to hear from you. So, be sure to leave your comments on any social media site that you're watching, and Gaylon will be sure to respond to you. So, folks, do you have integrity? Have you thought about that? We went to a commercial break. I hope you marinated on that because integrity is so important these days. And you know what, Galen? I feel like people, when you look at social media, I've heard this so many times, especially with online dating. This is the kicker for me. Online dating to me is like social media. So to me, when I say it, I'm all inclusive of that. But then you meet this person in reality and you find out it's not what you thought it was going to be, right? So then it's like a big thing about integrity. And I always tell people, eventually, you're going to have to show up as you. So what are you going to do about that? That's why you should be like me and just do your disclaimers in the beginning on date one. You know, I do disclaimers. I tell people, I think I might start doing a commercial. Galen, be like, watch this YouTube commercial. Let me send you the link. This is called Christine's Disclaimers. It's a private video. You can only see it via the link. And I'm just talking a video. These are the things that you need to know about me. Why are people like that? Just be honest about it.
Well, I think most people are not self-aware. So they might be honest about themselves, even if they did that up to a point. But
Okay.
every human being has blind spots.
Okay.
Nobody sees the totality of themselves and how they occur to other people.
That's so true. Because I hear often that I'm like I hate to even point this out for myself. I have a thing with buffoonery. And how can I say not buffoonery? I have people who don't perform at a certain level. And I become very dismissive or annoyed by that. And the way it's interpreted as I'm being dismissive towards you. So here's an example. If you're a person that has like a director or executive or vice president behind you or whatever president, and you can't accomplish small, simple tasks to me at a level of professionalism that's equivalent to your level, your professional level, then to me, I'm very dismissive. I look at you and I talk to you like you're a toddler because now you've upset me. I am horrible with that. And I know this about me.
Yeah, well, that's
Because I call them the great pretenders. You're pretending to be something. I'm just annoyed with you that you're taking up space and time and money, and somebody else could really be in that space, right?
no,
Performing at that level.
I get what you're saying. I think
I'm annoyed.
there's a empowered way of
Mhm.
addressing that without losing your sense of self. Just continue to work. At least you're aware.
I'm
You know
aware.
the 4 steps of awareness. There's what's I'm trying to remember where you're unconscious
Yes.
of the issue.
Hmm.
Then you're conscious of the issue, but it's unchanged.
Yes.
Then you make conscious efforts to change. In other words, you created a new way of being around a thing.
Mhm.
But it takes a lot of mental energy to do it.
It does.
Eventually you get to stage 4 if you consistently do stage 3, which is now becomes unconscious effort. In other words, it's your new way of being. So when buffoonery shows itself up, you recognize that it's buffoonery and you choose, and now unconsciously you're not triggered. You don't even have to think about it because you're like,
Okay.
okay, let me dismiss this buffoonery, take my energy off of this and put it somewhere
Okay.
else. So it's a process. I'm not going to say that, you use buffoonery. I use the word trifling. So we have different words. I love to throw around the word trifling. People know that about me. I use it in sermons and all types of stuff because it's trifling behavior. I'm very mindful of it, and I point it
Mhm.
out. I'm easy. But here's the thing: I don't point it out to people that are being trifling. I
Right.
normally point it out to people who I want to pay attention that's trifling is happening. Anytime
Yes.
I don't miss an opportunity to tell my daughter when something is trifling. Not for her, but when we're around behavior,
Right.
so she can clearly
So she can recognize it.
right. So yeah, I want her to be able to differentiate trifling
Right.
and behavior that is not reflective of how I feel as though she was raised
Hmm.
versus what's presenting itself now. It's because if you
Right.
don't know the difference, then sometimes you can think that something is normal when it's very abnormal. And in our community, meaning the African American community, in my opinion, our subculture has become mainstream.
Yes.
The community has a subculture, way we talk, way we act, way we do things that is not
Right.
always up to speed per se.
Right.
But now the things that we used to say, that's for the streets, that's for the with the homies, that's for the whatever, is now
Right.
mainstream, and that's problematic. And I'll leave that at that without trying to get canceled on this podcast.
Look, you can't get canceled, Galen.
I'm
I
not
own a
saying for
sign.
you, but from people, because I'll go
You
there.
won't get canceled.
Yeah.
I'll support you.
Okay.
But you know what? I think all of that leads to my next question. I think the trauma that impacts our life
Mm-hmm.
is what causes us to respond to things in a certain way. So my next question to you is, trauma in the past can create massive resistance to change at all times. But the thing is, how do we manage that trauma so it doesn't impact
Well,
our
first of
lives?
all, we need to acknowledge what trauma is. I'm a
Okay.
definition person.
Yeah.
Trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So, in other words, trauma is something that's very impactful. It shifts potentially how you show up in life. All right.
Okay.
So when trauma is unrecognized, or to use a more modern term, we use the term spiritual bypass, where we really don't
Hmm.
deal with it. It's more suppression than transformation.
Okay.
So when it's suppressed, when it's ignored, when it's
Right.
devalued, then
Right.
that teaches us how to show up in life as not enough. So one of the things we
Mm.
have to recognize is when trauma happens, uh, especially childhood trauma, how
Yeah.
that can show up later in life in relationships, in work, and in educational pursuits and other things of that nature, because uh, that trauma is hovering over you, almost like a boogeyman. For
Right.
instance, a person could have, um, you know, trauma. It could be, for instance, they could have issues with intimacy and connection because they potentially
Hmm.
had sexual assault. They could
Right.
have emotional uh, problems because they had a disconnect with parents or siblings. Normally, parents growing up, didn't hug them, didn't touch them, didn't
Hmm.
validate them, didn't love them up. Then somebody tries to do that in regular life because they said, "Man, you're awesome. Why are you fighting me, trying to love you?" Well,
Right.
because it was never enough for mama. I was never enough for mama. I was never enough for
Right.
daddy, et cetera, et cetera. So when you have those type of situations, it shows up in different ways. It shows up in your relationships.
Mm.
The trauma can show up as overcompensation with work, overcompensation with education. I'm gonna prove that I'm good enough. So the education, the work, the money isn't about success. It's about proving somebody in your past that's wrong, that they're wrong, even if that person is deceased. So we have to just be mindful how trauma can show up and affect our future. So trauma in the past impresses upon your present, and
Mhm.
it directs your future, which means that you're consistently traumatizing yourself over and over again, far beyond the
Far
original
beyond.
experience.
So, Galen, how does a person, I don't even know. I mean, I guess the question I want to ask is, you're in the middle of that. You don't know you're in the middle of that vicious cycle, right? You just know that you're in the middle of it, and it's like a way of life. I know a person right now who works so hard to be important. I mean, pays to go speak overseas, pays the airfare, the hotel, everything to go speak in other countries, puts themselves in the middle of all kind of stuff, earned multiple degrees. Who needs two PhDs? One is enough. We don't need to keep going to school. Multiple masters and all of this. But the thing is, married, great kids, great husband, but it's like, what are you validating? Like at
Okay.
some point, you can just be you, and that's the whole thing. But I don't think the person sees that. I think
Okay.
they're in the way they see it as, I'm just improving myself. That's what they say. It's ongoing.
Well, first of all, just in case this person ends up watching the show, I didn't know anything about that question. I try to keep things on a general basis as much as I possibly can. I'll let Christine deal with the fallout of her friend telling her business.
Exactly. Don't worry
Uh,
about it.
but I think yet again, um, we got to be careful. Why are we chasing a thing?
Right.
And getting to the point to where we're unconscious? Because here's the thing: A person might be unaware that that trauma is driving them,
Okay.
but what they are aware of is that they're not happy
Yes.
at a level. At some level, they know no matter what I do, it's never
Enough.
enough. No matter what, how many degrees, how much money, how many, perfect relationship, or or if a person wants to be promiscuous, no matter
Right.
how many people they have sex with and whatever,
It's never
it's
enough.
never enough. The car is not enough. The trips, the vacations, the fame is never enough. Why? Because they don't have a sense of peace and acceptance of themselves. So what I would tell people yet again, if you're in the midst of it, pay attention to the fact that you're not satisfied, that you don't have a sense of satisfaction and peace with who you are as a person. Now, that doesn't mean stop pursuing goals and seeking to achieve in
Right.
life. I'm not saying that by no stretch of the imagination. But here's the thing: but can you love you at the current stage?
Right.
Can you accept you at the
At
current
the current
stage?
stage.
Can you have peace with you at the current stage while you're seeking to develop a consciousness that will allow you to achieve greater and greater heights in life? But it won't make a difference if you stay in the space of I'm never
Not
enough.
enough.
It's never enough.
Right.
And here's the thing. Um, we chase uh but for what reason? For instance, I'm on this podcast. I have my Truth Transforms with Reverend Gaylon McDowell. Sometimes I'm on your men's podcast. I teach classes in the Johnny Coleman Institute. I preach not only from my own church. I do online Zoom
Multiple churches.
churching, yeah, churches, online and in person. I'm
Yes.
doing funerals, weddings,
Mhm.
counseling people. I run the staff for a day to day, whatever.
Mhm.
But here's the key: I don't do any of that stuff primarily for me.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
if I didn't feel as though this was beneficial to people,
To people.
because my purpose is to help people transform their lives by recognizing the truth within themselves. If I didn't feel as though it was beneficial, I wouldn't do it. I don't
Mhm.
need to have somebody put me on for putting me
Right.
on purposes.
Right.
If I'm gonna be put me on so I can help more people, so I can inform more people, so I can help other people live better lives, transform their
Exactly.
experiences. And if it's not about doing that type of stuff, then it's to me it's ego based.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's what your friend is doing, but I'm
No, no,
just
no. Yeah.
relating it back to me.
Mhm.
I gotta have a reason why I'm doing all of this work. Okay, because I have enough skill to go work some regular job or start some regular business that will be
Right.
a lot less have a lot less demand on my time.
Time. Yes.
Okay, but I do it because I want to make a positive impact in the world that matters to me. So if you're gonna be out there chasing the degrees, chasing the businesses, chasing the seminars, chasing what ends up happening is you become an information junkie versus a demonstration
Right.
person. All right. So I'm just
Mhm.
gathering more information, more data, not necessarily the willingness to get on the court in a way, but not getting on the court for court's sake. Why am I even getting on the court? Why am I
Right.
doing what I'm doing? And I'm okay if a person just says, "Hey, I just want to make this money and keep it moving." I'm completely okay
If
with
that's
that.
your purpose, then that's good.
Then go ahead and do that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, know that's why you're doing it. But if it's okay because I want the fame, because I want to be famous, okay, I get that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I have no judgments on that.
Mhm.
But I differentiate spirit led versus ego led. That's my
I
thing.
like
I
that.
know. So.
No, Galen, I like what you said, and I just people need to understand the difference between the two. And folks, that's why we have this platform. Trust me, I will tell you, every person, every cast member on every show has a life outside of being on the Five F's to Love podcast platform. And people tease because not only do I run my own three companies, I also work for a municipality now. And this is a lot of work, but it's important to me because I feel like Black relationships, Black love, we need to basically look at ourselves and be able to project that positive image that we're looking for. And if you're not going to go see a therapist, Tune in every Wednesday. Listen to Galen. Tune in on Thursdays. I'm just saying, tune in on Thursdays. If you don't have any male friends, listen to these guys. And that's the purpose of this podcast. I tell people all the time, it's never about me. It's about me wanting to help people. I had a great example of a beautiful relationship. And although I'm not in one, and I'm going to be clear, when as a child, and those are what Galen just talked about, when you have a biological parent walk away and leave you, okay, that's a lot to handle. But I went through therapy. That's the reason why I'm good now. I didn't went through my little therapy sessions, honey. I paid good money. That person probably sent their kid to college on my sessions alone. But the thing is, I had to fix me so I wouldn't have abandonment issues walking into a relationship and I'm needy. Like, oh my God, you can't go anywhere without me. Where are you going? Call me, text me. I don't do that. If a person don't call me for 4 days, I'm good. I know you good. We don't have to, I don't need all this talking to. We good. And that's me. If you text me and don't call me, I'm not going to say, why are you texting me and not calling me? Although, by the way, I'm old school. I'd rather you pick up the phone and say I love you than to text me. I have a problem with that part. You can text during the day, but in the morning, can I get a call? But the thing is, I dealt with that. So I know that's not an issue. And that's one of the things that Galen is saying. Like, folks, am I not enough? We should have called this session, Am I Not Enough? Because resistance to change is that whole thing. You feeling like you're not enough and you're pushing back because of the fear of that person peeling back the banana peel and finding out there's no banana behind the peel.
Well, yeah, and then there's the dynamic of what I would call shattering of a paradigm. And when your personality, ego, and sense of identity is wrapped up in the one way of being, and
Yes.
somebody shatters it or threatens to shatter it, you think that you're destroyed.
You're
So
destroyed.
we deal with this with politics.
Mhm.
We use terms like conservative versus progressive. Conservatives are trying to maintain status quo. Progressives are always trying to challenge it. But what happens in this country when progression goes too fast? It's an automatic backlash of resistance.
Yep.
All right. When conservatism goes too far, there's an automatic backlash of resistance. So we're playing this almost, back and forth game of resistance because people push back against change that's too fast normally.
That's too fast.
And because I often tell people in church settings, a person will say, for instance, I'm walking down the hallway and the person sees me and they've been waiting to see me all week or a couple of weeks. They haven't seen me. They've been thinking about what they've been thinking about. It's been on their mind. They've played out probably multiple scenarios on the way this happened. And then they see me. Reverend Gaylon, and I'm like, okay, what do you think? I don't think anything about it. You've been thinking about this for the longest. I ain't thought about this at all. You asked me my opinion about something I haven't thought about. So I had to learn, and I got this from one of my spiritual fathers, that I didn't have to answer a question immediately just because the person presented it to me. And that's why I will lovingly tell people consistently, let me get back to you on that. And I do.
Right.
I don't ignore or dismiss people. But I don't want people feeling as though that you can drop something in my lap.
Right.
And I haven't had a chance to process it when all you've been doing is thinking about it.
That's all you've been doing is thinking about that. So you think I've been thinking about it and I haven't.
I hadn't thought about it at all. Or somebody think something is a big deal to me. Well, this is a big breakdown and we got to deal with this. I ain't thought about this because at my level, it's not a breakdown. It might be something that needs to be addressed.
But it's not a breakdown.
But it's not something that requires me to stop everything I'm doing and pay attention to it. That's the difference.
That's the difference.
All right. So we just got to be mindful of that as we're communicating with people. And like, for instance, I know that at times my way of teaching, especially when I was younger, being the hardcore metaphysician, that's my church nickname. The hardcore metaphysician, that sometimes I would push people too hard and too fast. That's why I'm more mindful of how I answer things now, because I would lovingly shatter paradigms. Like, you believe this, right? Somebody asks me a question, They were not getting level 1 and 2. They would get level 10 answers consistently. And I realize now that some people can handle that and some people can't. So depending on the person will sometimes determine. Like I try to, as much as I can, try to
Right.
keep this conversation no higher than a 5. It's not the purpose of this
Right.
podcast. So people, regardless of who they are, can come in, get what they need from it. But if I start getting super mystical on here, I might be able to dip my toe into the
Right.
water of it every blue moon. But if I get
Right.
too mystical, then I'm gonna lose people. So I'm a big believer in practical spirituality. Therefore, you're gonna have some resistance anyway, because people who
Right.
don't want to change and do better, my message is going to cause resistance in a person
Correct.
anyway. It don't make a difference who it is.
Right.
And I'm a big believer that the more you show up spiritually, people who
Right.
are less spiritually evolved, you create great resistance with them.
Great resistance.
Great resistance, not just resistance. You show up at a
Right.
particular. You ever been around a person and they had no reason to be agitated with you? You showed up as love, as peace, as just
And
showing
they're
up as your
agitated.
spiritual you, and they're just agitated. Why? Because there's an aspect, those thoughts and beliefs and feelings within that person gets agitated because you're functioning at a different level.
Right.
Vibrationally, you're just not a match.
You know what? People who are watching who know me, when I show up, I probably do make you agitated. But just know, I don't even know that. Don't hold it against me. That's all I got to say. When we get back, we're going to talk about where your attention goes, your power will follow. I wonder where my power is taking me. We're going to find when we get back. Right back after this quick commercial break.
Have you ever felt? Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Have you ever felt? Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Loving how you wind up. For me, tonight is all on me. Mash up the place for me, yeah. She just wanna highlight. Ooh, that body talk to me. I need a taste, baby. Loving the way you move around me. No more delay. No, you can't wait to shut it down. Won't you show me how you work it? I can't find no flaws, you perfect. Cause every time that you come around my way, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. And every time
Hey guys, welcome back to the 5Fs to Love. I know you're probably thinking it's Gaylon. It is Gaylon. So you know it's Wednesday and it's the meta behind relationships. Hey, if you're just tuning in right now, this is a pre-recorded session. Be sure to follow, like, and share us on YouTube and any social media site that you're watching us on, and leave comments. Why? Because Gaylon's going to answer them. Not me, Gaylon. So Gaylon, when we left off, this is what I need to know. When your attention goes, your power follows. I want to know where my power is going right now.
Okay, well, it looks like it says where your attention goes, your power flows. So I'm gonna say flows.
Okay, you're gonna say flows. I feel like follows because I think my power is following that flow.
Yeah, that is true. So here's the thing. As I've said many times on this podcast, to think is to create mental vibrational impulse. Thinking generates energy at a mental level, not on a physical level, but on the mental level. On the brain, obviously, at the brain level is it's electrical signals.
Correct.
But a more esoteric level, you're creating vibrational alignment
Hmm.
or disalignment with the way you think about a thing. So when you put your attention on something, when you put your focus on something, you put in the power of your consciousness on a thing. All right.
Hmm.
So by nature, energy is going to flow towards it. So if you're putting your attention on the things that you don't like, if you're thinking, feeling, believing, talking about what you consistently don't like, don't want, etc., and you refuse to do anything about it, because some people just love to criticize. They don't want to address things. They just right. You're actually telling universal law you want more of it. So
Hmm.
when I say that where your attention goes, your power flows, what I'm saying is whatever keeps your consistent attention,
Right.
mentally, emotionally, and audibly, and with your actions, is basically saying, God, give me more of it.
Hmm. Okay, I need to stop putting out that I like to work then. Stuff just keep coming. Honestly, when someone said to me, Christine, you work how many jobs? What do you do? Oh my God, when do you have time? Do you ever take time out for yourself? And the thing is, I do, because to me, it's not a lot. Like your life. Somebody would look at your life and say, you got married? Do you have time for your wife? Do you even see her? Like they would be asking these questions. But I think some people, we just operate on a higher plane. So to us, it's not a lot. It's like a norm, right?
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is, for me, studying is relaxing to me. So some
Right.
people would say, okay, man, he read all these books, he's reading and highlighting whatever. But for me, it's relaxing to read. So that's not a big deal. For other people,
Mhm.
that's a monumental task to do research on a subject. I
It
love to
is.
research. I'm reading a book now that talks about Bruce Lee from age 18 to age 32 when he made his transition. He was almost 33, and his evolution of martial arts, what he was doing at the different stages of his
Mhm.
life. You know how incredibly detailed that is? This takes to study somebody else's life to be able
Right.
to find all the people who either taught him, find people who taught him quotes, or find people who he taught, people who he knew,
Wow.
friends and family and whatever, and figure out, well, he was in this city, he was doing this, and
Right.
between these years, that's fun for me. So for other people that might be like, man, that's a lot of work, but it's not work to
It's
me.
not work.
It's a part of my thirst for knowledge. I
Right.
love knowledge. So
Wow.
where my attention goes, my power flows. So my ability to absorb knowledge and give it back is something that's a gift, and I've chosen to enhance it. Where
That's like
your
a
attention goes,
superpower.
right? Where your attention goes, because a lot of people can absorb information, but they can't explain it.
Right.
You
You
know,
have a superpower.
I appreciate that thing. We all
Mhm.
have superpowers. They're just different.
Mhm.
So it just makes you just have to figure out, okay, what am I putting my attention on, like, legitimately,
Right.
and figure out how to best put your attention, your energy, your consciousness, your power on that which
Right.
will produce you the good results that you desire, not on the things that you don't want. If something is broken in your life, put your power on it to the solution, not
Right.
complaining about the problem. Okay, that's the
I love
difference.
that.
All right.
Galen, you said something that was so impactful. And that's what people need to understand, especially when you're in relationships. What you find enjoyable to someone else may be daunting. And it sometimes comes off like it is daunting, as if they're experiencing it, right? And their thing is, well, why are you doing it? And why is it taking? So the thing is, I always tell people, doing this podcast to me, it's nothing. It just feels like a part of my day. So when I create those commercials, I put a lot of detail in it. When you send me your topics, I'm searching literally probably for a good hour the right thing to put in this to promote this concept, right? Because I know visually when people look at it,
Mhm.
they be ready and prepared to understand. Even if you don't understand the text, you understand the video of
Right.
coming up, and it interprets the concept, right? So I put time into it, but to me, it's like it's a challenge to see if I can make even better products. every season I up my game in my production products, right?
No, I get it.
But we are, and that's my thing, and I enjoy it just like you read books. And I read a lot of books, but to me, it's one thing to say you can do something, and it's one thing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at. And I look at you and I say all the time to myself, how can somebody match that energy that he has? See, you guys watch Gaylon in this podcast, but if you saw Gaylon live,
yeah.
oh my God, he's like a powerhouse. And just by the way, folks, that's coming to you soon. So you guys can see him live. He's a powerhouse. And I don't think people understand. I call you like a thesaurus, a dictionary. You're like all things. What I call you, the empowerment of all things, which people may say, well, he's not God. No, I'm not saying he's God, but you're one of the few people I know. You could have read a book 20 years ago and you got a whole quote from the book that you didn't read 20 years ago. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't give y'all no quotes. I'm gonna have to read the book and give you the quote then.
That's a gift. Yeah, but I think again, where your attention goes, your power flows.
Yes.
So I've put my attention on being an excellent presenter of truth. Wow. And truth is a synonym for God, for source, for principle, for universal law. I've dedicated myself to not being good. Excellent. Excellence is my standard. Therefore, when I show up, people have an expectation that I'm going to be excellent in my presentation. It makes a difference to me. I can't show up, half cocked. There's no other way for me to say that.
But why show up? That's nothing. Why show up?
Right. I can't do it. So, and just let me tell you how this worked out. When I was younger, a younger minister, I was in Puerto Rico. And they used to speak with Reverend Derek Wells and Reverend Roderick Norton. We used to be known as a group called the Young Alliance. We used to go to conferences and speak together. And this was our first big one. Speaking in Puerto Rico, Panorama of Truth Conference. And we were speaking. It started on Wednesday night. That's the main opening. And we started on Thursday morning. So, we're younger and, we're a little bit overconfident. We're like, look, we're going to tear this place up. When we're done, all they're going to be doing is talking about the three of us. We're ready to tear the house down. I'm telling you, Michael Beckwith ended up being put on Wednesday night as the keynote speaker, opening speaker. And I'm telling you, he tore the house down. I mean, he didn't leave anything left on the plate.
Right.
Not a nothing to nibble on.
Not a crumb.
But here's the thing: people who believe in excellence. So the three of us were in Puerto Rico. Normally after the sessions, people mingle. They go out to eat with each other. They hang around. You know how conferences are. The three of us, we didn't say a word to each other. We looked at each other, and we walked across the street from the hotel to a Subway. We all went and got sandwiches. We all went back to our separate hotel rooms. And we all rewrote our parts. We had 90 minutes. We had 30 minutes each. Right. We all rewrote what we had because we realized when we showed up in Puerto Rico was inadequate to meet what the expectation was. So, see, this is why
I see that.
So, and this is why it's good to be around excellent people. They make you raise your game.
They do.
So when I was a kid, it was no different. You go and play basketball, you play with the better players, you get better.
Right.
So hearing him speak and realizing like, oh man, this is what you can do with this. Like, oh, okay. Now I got to come harder. And none of us said, let's go rewrite our lesson. It was understood.
Right.
This is what has to happen. Now, when we showed it the next day, we were probably 3 times better than we were going to be the night before. And what we had was good. But he forced us to say, now, can we match where he is and beyond? And, and I don't know if it was beyond, but I know we were going to match that energy and information. It wasn't just matching the energy. It was matching the information. So the reason why I'm saying this is because we put our attention on it, our power kicked in to give us new ideas, new ways of presenting the same ideas that we had worked on all that time for the conference. Where your attention goes, your power
Power
flows.
flows.
Okay.
Folks, that is very important when you look at relationships, because if you're not where you need to be, and let's say your attention is somewhere where it shouldn't be, that's where your power is going to flow in that relationship. And that's going to push back and just really a lot of resistance in you understanding them or understanding you in that relationship. I
Hmm.
always tell people you show up in a relationship who you are, but in that relationship you begin to see different parts of yourself, right?
Right.
And when women and men say to me, "Oh, I can't believe this happened," no, understand this: you're different in every relationship because that person is triggering and bringing something different out of you. So you can't compare one relation. I mean, there are some commonalities. Don't get me wrong, but the things that really kind of turn you and make you flip and look at yourself, I can honestly say that the person that people see, everybody who's watching right now, is not the person I am one on one in a relationship. But unfortunately, this is the person people see, and this is the person they want to be with. But when you're with me and I'm quiet, I'm like you. I'm either reading a book on something, doing some research. I really don't have a lot to say. But they're attracted to this person. And I have to say to them, well, what's happening? Why aren't you not saying anything? Why aren't you? Because I'm focused. But then I have to understand I've got to give a little bit of this in the relationship
Right.
because this is the person they fell for. And again, that's what I got to understand. So, folks, I don't think I'm not fearful of them seeing the real Chris. This is Christine that you all are seeing. Chris is the person that nobody sees because it's off camera. But Christine is the person that I project. But I'm not afraid of anybody seeing Chris. So I'm not going to be resistant because when you do see me, either you're going to like me, love me, or leave me. Like
Well,
a few
right.
LLs.
Well, I do think that, people who tend to um, be what I consider myself a social introvert. And what I mean
Yes.
by that is I can be around people and talk, 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 talk. And I can also be the person who doesn't have to say a word, depending on the situation.
Mhm.
And I'm really, really happy being by myself.
Yes.
That being said, when you're with a person, your
Mhm.
partner deserves the attention. And see, this is where the challenge comes to play with people who are more introverted.
Yeah.
Uh, um, that 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 you can be so into your own head that you're not
Mhm.
paying attention and reading the room.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer in reading the room. Okay, what's required in this moment of me?
Mhm.
And if a person is not paying attention, again, where your attention goes, your power flows.
Yes.
So if you're in my space and I've dedicated my life to saying I want to be with you, and then when you show up in my space, I'm consistently not giving you my attention. That means
Right.
I'm not directing my power, my love, my wisdom, my understanding, my compassion to you.
To
And
you.
so therefore, that creates a breakdown in the relationship. So what I
Yes.
would tell people is get out of the shell if you want
Mhm.
to be with somebody and give them the time and the energy that they deserve to be in a relationship. I'm not talking about overcompensation. I'm not talking about out of balance
Right.
stuff, but I am saying if you're going to be in a relationship, stop playing games with people and yourself and thinking that it doesn't require any level of compromise. There are going to be times where you're going to have to put the book down. You're going to have to come out of your shell. You got to come out of your own mind or come out of your
Yes.
own projects and just
Yes.
be. And and when my daughter was a kid, she was a great example of that. Well, regardless of what's going on, okay, sometimes people would see me. I'll be in her room with her dolls, playing with her because my daughter needed that in the moment.
Mhm.
All right. Instead of daddy's busy, daddy's researching, daddy's whatever. Okay. There were gonna be times where that was absolutely necessary.
Right.
But it's also necessary to make sure that you take care of the other things.
Galen, I'm so glad you said that because there is a difference. And I think a lot of times when people get married, children get involved, that's a whole different level of managing your fear, resistance, in a lot of things,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
if you can just be with it, then you can
Mhm.
let it be what it needs to be.
Right.
Um, you know, every night when her mother and I were married, every night I put her to bed. and I didn't leave the room until she fell asleep, because that was required of me with her. And I could have come up with a ton of excuses. The basketball game was on, the football game, I'm missing my TV show or whatever. But are those people really more important than my child?
Than your child.
Those TV show, that game. So what I decided to do was be very present to, this is what's required in this moment. And instead of resisting it, it became a thing that now that she's 23, almost 24, I'm very proud of, because she knew that every night her dad put her to bed. Every night her dad read her something before he went to sleep. And I sat on the floor right next to her bed until she went to sleep.
And that makes a difference.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think is just so valuable when you're being a parent, because the kids don't ask to be here. And I used to laugh because Julie used to say to me, well, no, you don't. I know you're at work. You don't have to make it to my practice. It's just a practice. Just come to the game. I didn't care what I was doing or what was going on. I would stop a meeting to make it to Julian's football practice, his baseball practice. He did every sport. I mean, I was in sports year round for like 5 years. I never missed a practice. I never missed a game, because I needed to show him he was more important than anything to me. Yeah, and when you get into a relationship, that's a requirement.
Yeah, and people resist. See, they want the people. Often people want the. How can I put this? I'm gonna say this nicely.
Say it nice.
People look at relationships like a new toy.
Yes.
They want to pull the toy out of the box at their convenience.
At their convenience.
Okay, as if so a toy doesn't have the toy's only job is to be there when you want to play.
Yes.
That's not a person.
It's not.
Okay. So you might not always want to play, and yet your attention is required.
It is. And
the more you're resistant to it, the more it's telling you about you.
Yes. And it does. So folks, when we get back, we're going to talk about forgiveness and acceptance. And a lot of times, folks, I think we skip over both the forgiveness and the acceptance, and we try to muddle through it on this is just what it is. And folks, it can't always be that way. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
My business. 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 My business.
What's up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, ain't ships, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's an off day. Now we on road, came from smoking in the hallway. Now we got shows, boys feeling like Broadway. Always look both ways, even on a crossway. Driving down Cross Bay, out town Barclays. Really on big things, came up a small way. Championship rings, baby, that's a ball game. Oh, she want a little bag, baby, that's small change. Yeah, that money talk. If we ain't cool, then cut me off. No breaking news, don't run your mouth. Thought it was a plug, now he running off. Thought it was a plug, now he running off. What you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it.
Broken future. All the plans you made in your heart grew just to die.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 5 F's to Love. Okay, yeah, it's Galen. So you know it's Wednesdays, and that's the meta behind relationships. Listen, you know this is pre-recorded. We want to hear from you though. So please leave your comments in any social media site that you're watching us on. And if you're listening to any of our podcast platforms, leave messages there. You know why? Because Galen answers them, not me. So leave your messages. So Galen, we're wrapping up, but I gotta get this in. Forgiveness and acceptance releases pin up emotional images and emotions.
Yeah. Emotional images, probably should have used a
Wow.
different language for that as
No,
I'm
that
reading
was
it
I
now.
like emotional images.
Yeah. First of all, forgiveness, I call it the liquid plumber of the soul,
Hmm.
because when there's a clogged pipe, you need something that can release it so the pipe can function the way it was designed to function.
Right.
I believe that we're designed to be authentically powerful, free, and relaxed. Not relaxed that okay, you never have any pressure or stress or whatever, but nothing that's breaking you down mentally and emotionally. So when
Right.
you learn to forgive, you learn how to set aside energetically the things that have been disrupting your soul. As Gerald Jampolsky wrote, forgiveness means giving up all hopes for a better past. That's my
Yes.
favorite definition of forgiveness, because often the reason why we don't forgive is because we wish that something in the past was different than it was. So that's why forgiveness and acceptance so well together, because eventually you got to accept, okay, this is what it was. Okay, you wanted mama to be somebody other than she was. You wanted daddy to be somebody other than he
Right.
was, or is. But acceptance is, okay, this is who they are. Now, with that being true,
Hmm.
who am I choosing to show up as now? That's the question.
That's the question.
Okay. Because, mama and daddy might not have met your expectations in the past, or their
Right.
own, or anybody else's.
Mhm.
That they might not even been around.
Right.
But now that you have some level of conscious awareness, you get to be right or free. You get to be right to hold on to that energy,
I like
that
that.
anger, that frustration, that dissatisfaction, or you can just choose to be free.
Free.
That's what forgiveness and acceptance gives you. Remember, where your energy flow, where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if your attention is on what they did wrong and how they screwed you up,
Mhm.
then your mind is stayed, and the energy and your
That's
power is
it.
stayed on that versus
Mhm.
what do I want to produce in my life? What do I want to experience? More importantly, who do I want to be?
Who do I want to be?
Okay, so just because this is something that they did doesn't mean that has to be me. This is why I push back. When people say things like, that's a generational curse. Okay, it's only a curse if I accept it.
Exactly.
Okay, nothing. Now, I'm a big believer that the sins of the parents can visit upon the children. I'm a big
Hmm.
believer in that.
Hmm.
However, if you become consciously aware, and this is part of the thing, if you're watching this, then I'm assuming that you have some level of conscious awareness that life can be different. That
Right.
means you work on yourself to free yourself from the bondage of the past, the bondage of your upbringing, the bondage of
Right.
past relationships that didn't work out, the bondage of bad choices, the bondage of ignorance. Ignorance
Hmm.
means you don't know better. If you can free yourself up, you can give yourself a different shot at life and making life show up differently for yourself. But forgiveness and,
Mm.
and release, those will be the keys to your freedom.
Wow. Galen, that's enough said for me. Folks, you already know I hate to end Wednesdays. This is like going through a free therapy session for me. Trust me, I paid enough for therapists. I need a couple free sessions tossed in. Galen, as always, thank you so much for being a part of the 5S to Love podcast network. You are truly an amazing speaker, and I really appreciate you sharing your gift with us every Wednesday. I don't know about you guys, but it's making me better because this year Christine is focused on being in a really awesome, loving, caring, supportive relationship with a good guy. That's what I'm looking for. So it's going to come to me. You know why? Because that's where my energy is going. Don't fool with that. I do listen, folks. So, Galen, you close it out, folks. I will see you next Wednesday. And don't forget, 8 to 9 p.m. Be sure to share all of this with everybody you know. You know why? Because we're here to help you help yourself in your relationship. See you next week, Galen.
Thank you. See you next week. So, when you're talking about resistance, I do want to make this one point. I don't want you to think that that being less resistant means that you're doing things that make you uncomfortable. emotionally, financially, sexually, or any of that type of stuff. Have some integrity and authenticity when it comes to those things. That's not what I mean when I'm talking about resistance, because you rightfully should not do anything you feel as though devalues you or makes you uncomfortable. You should be resistant to that. Resistance in and of itself isn't a bad thing. Resistance, it only shows up as disruptive when it's out of place. And I just want to be clear about that. All right. It's good to resist. You know, if a person showed up and was trying to give me, here, take this drug, I'm going to resist. Why? Because that ain't who I am. So it's okay to be resistant. If a person shows up in my life in a way that I don't feel as though is holistic, I'm going to be resistant. So resistance in its place is good. Resistance out of place can be destructive. So as we deal with resistance out of place, just remember the forgiveness and acceptance will free you. Remember that where your attention goes, your power flows. So if you feel as though you're becoming resistant to things that can make your life better, that's the time to pause and do some introspection and some prayerful introspection. And instead of focusing on the problem, start praying about how to get to the other side. God, help me, teach me how to love. God, teach me how to make better decisions. Spirit, what are my next and best steps? Holy Spirit, what do I need to know that I'm not aware of right now? Start dealing with yourself and seeking to study love, study universal flow and vibration and all of the other stuff. Study and read up on forgiveness. Do your work. As you do your work, as my teacher, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman used to say, it works if you work it. So do the work. For homework, I want you all to watch my YouTube video, The Forgiveness Process. I cover a lot of stuff in that. I think it'll be beneficial in helping you understand the power of forgiveness, what forgiveness is, how to apply it practically to your everyday life so you can free yourself. I always try to give you extra stuff, extra material, so you can show up as the magnificent version that version of you that you're capable of being, because I know that there's something radically right about you. So God bless you. I'll be with you next week with the matter behind relationships.